Good afternoon to you. 306 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up this hour, Mary Katherine Hamm will be with us. We'll talk to her about Democrats and their attempts to appear human, to appeal to you for your votes. It's not going well. Ken Cuccinelli joins us at 4 o'clock today from the Election Transparency Initiative. He's a former attorney general, of course, former deputy secretary of Homeland Security. We talk about the border and why the cartels are now running scared, reportedly, with President Trump in office. And Miranda Devine from the New York Post is here at 5 o'clock today. Another jam-packed show for you. You can be a part of it. 888-630-9625. 888-630-WMAL. We begin, as we often do, with breaking news this hour. President Trump is at the White House, having just announced a major, major deal to bring some of those very important chip manufacturers right to the United States of America. In fact, President Trump, alongside the chip maker TSMC, which is responsible for making 90% of the computer chips on the whole planet on the island of Taiwan, is coming to America with $100 billion in investment. A big announcement from the president just moments ago, leading into a longer press conference about everything else that's going on. Here's the president speaking.
Today, Taiwan Semiconductors is announcing that they will be investing at least $100 billion in new capital in the United States over the next short period of time to build state-of-the-art semiconductor manufacturing facilities. I think mostly it's going to be in Arizona, which is what I understand, which is a great state. I like it because I won it, but I won most of them, actually. But we won it, and we won it big. The most powerful AI chips in the world will be made right here in America, and it'll be a big percentage of the chips made by his company. But as you know, they're based mostly in Taiwan, and they're far and away the biggest. There's nobody even close. This $100 billion in new investment will go into building 5 cutting-edge fabrication facilities in the great state that we just discussed, Arizona, and will create thousands of jobs, many thousands of jobs, and they're high-paying jobs. In total, today's announcement brings Taiwan Semiconductor investments to about $165 billion they've started.
So $165 billion. In other words, President Trump announcing a new tranche today, over $100 billion on top of the 65, which now seems measly by comparison. That's so cool. So that's a lot of money. 20,000 plus new jobs. Those are American jobs right here in the United States of America. It is super important that we actually do get this chip manufacturing going in America. One of the strategic considerations of the United States is our dependency on Taiwan for these chips. It's not a small deal. These computer chips are in everything that you use, from your phone to your car to your computer to maybe your refrigerator these days. It's everything. Very reliant on these chips. And as long as we are reliant on Taiwan, well, that's bad news for America, because that is a virtual way to guarantee armed conflict with China if they move on Taiwan. We want to mitigate that, don't we? Obviously, the defense of Taiwan for many years has been talked about as merely defending a free people from the incursion of the communists in China. Got all that. But if you're going to get down to brass tacks and you're going to talk about strategic interests, that chip manufacturing is critical. And President Trump being able to move another $100 billion in chip investment here to the United States of America, it is a big, big deal for national security and for our economy. So a good announcement today out of the White House. President Trump likes these things. I forget what he said was the minimum figure, but if you're a foreign investor and you want to invest in the United States, there's a certain $1 billion threshold that you can arrive at that President Trump will say, come do it from the White House with me, won't you? We'll do a press conference together to make that announcement. He loves that. So that just happened. Additionally, he's been taking questions during this announcement, as he often does. We jump now to a question about Ukraine, given that disastrous meeting by Volodymyr Zelensky on Friday, who really screwed up his opportunity to get a deal that was designed to both benefit his country and to bring about a peace.
Mr. President, is the Ukraine minerals deal now dead, or can it be revived? What's your...
Well, I'll let you know. We're making a speech. You probably heard about it tomorrow night, so I'll let you know tomorrow night. But no, I don't think so.
That speech, by the way, is the joint address to Congress. That's what he's going to be doing tomorrow night. as each president does traditionally. In their first year, it's not a State of the Union. Instead, it's a joint address to Congress. In subsequent years, it will be known as the State of the Union.
Mr. President. It's a great deal for us because, Biden very, very foolishly, stupidly, frankly, gave $300 billion and $350 billion more accurately to a country to fight and to try and do things. And you know what happened? We get nothing. We get nothing.
The money disappears. It gets stolen, even to the point that Zelensky himself, whether he's lying or telling the truth, says, I don't know where all this money went. I don't know where it went. Well, that's not good. This is a terrible arrangement.
But we could have rebuilt our entire U.S. Navy with $350 billion. Think of it, $350 billion. We could have rebuilt our U.S. Navy. So
we need ships. It's a good sign that President Trump is talking about rebuilding the Navy. We definitely need shipbuilding.
He gave it away as fast as the money could be gone. And what we're doing is getting that all back and a lot more than that. And what we need, it's very important for this business that we're talking about here with chips and semiconductors and everything else. We need rare earths. And the deal we have is we have the finest rare earths.
Mr. President, what do you need to see from President Zelensky to restart these negotiations?
Contrition.
Well, I just think he should be more appreciative because this country has stuck with them through thick and thin. We've given them much more than Europe, and Europe should have given more than us because, as you know, that's right there. That's the border. This country really was like the fence on the border. It was very important to Europe, and I'm not knocking Europe. I'm saying that they were a lot smarter than Joe Biden because Joe Biden didn't have a clue. He just gave money hand over fist, and they should have been able to equalize with us. In other words, if we gave $1, they should have given. Well, we gave $350 billion. They probably gave $100, but on top of it all, they get their money back because they're doing it in the form of a loan, and it's a secured loan. So when I saw that, which I've known about for a little while, I said it's time for us to be smart.
Yeah, remember Biden gives all of our money away, and then he says, and you don't have to pay it back. Don't you worry. That's a little gift from us. From us? Were we consulted on this subject? I don't think so. No, you're not just giving it away. They're printing it, giving it away, stealing from you. However they're getting it, they're giving it away. And it's led to millions of casualties. Millions. Human carnage right there in Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And President Trump wants to end it. The left doesn't because they hate Trump. Either they're in on the scam, somehow they're benefiting financially from it, or they just hate Trump, which is the typical reason that most of the blue-haired leftists who you're aware of, who have images of Ukraine flags in their bios, that's their position. They just hate Trump. So therefore, they're dead-enders on this war. They're happy with it. They'd be perfect. I mean, let's be honest. You know where the left is on this subject. They'd rather be in World War III than allow Trump to bring about a peace. They would rather this thing lead to an escalation than allow Trump to stop that from happening. That's their position. You and I both know it. That's how animated by anti-Trump animus the left has become, to the extent that it's a real political faction anymore anyway. It's a shrinking faction, as you know. But the small faction that exists is intense and deranged. They'd be for World War III. There's not a chance that they would ever be able to abide with any sort of emotional discipline President Trump receiving a Nobel Peace Prize. Not that the Nobel Committee is any more pro-Trump than they are, but imagine. Imagine if Trump got the Nobel Peace Prize. Imagine if that happened. That would be like Hiroshima to Arlington. Right? Am I right, Corey? Your neighbors would see that as their personal Nagasaki. If Trump were to receive a Nobel Peace Prize, it would be devastating to them. Lives being saved and Trump receiving credit is the worst possible combination of events for an American lefty. Can't happen. So here's President Trump saying, look, it's really straightforward. This guy has to stop being an idiot, this Zelensky. He needs to be more appreciative of the fact that the American people have given them everything. He needs to come back to the table, sign this thing, show a little contrition, and we're all going to move forward splendidly.
At the same time, it's great for them because they get us in the country taking the rare earth, which is going to fuel this big engine, and especially the engine that we've in a very short time created. And we get something, and we're there. We have a presence there. With all of that being said, I want one thing to happen. I want all of those young people to stop being killed. They're being killed by the thousands every single week. Last week, 2,700 were killed. 2,700 young, in this case, just about all young boys from Ukraine
Yeah.
and from Russia.
Listen to him. What is he talking about? What is his priority here? The end of the bloodshed, the end of the human suffering.
And that's not young people from the United States, but it's on a human basis. I want to see it stop. The money is one thing, but the death. And they're losing thousands of soldiers a week. And that's not including the people that get killed every time a town goes down or a missile goes into a town. And I want to see it stop. Yes.
Are you considering canceling military aid to Ukraine? And can we get a reaction to what the Prime Minister said, that your administration is bringing U.S. worldview in alignment with Moscow's?
So this is a deal that should have never happened. This is a deal that would have never happened. And it didn't happen for 4 years. It didn't happen. It was never even close to happening.
These people are children, these questions that he's receiving. Like, is your view in line with Moscow's now? Like, what are you? This whole, like, oh, you're being a Putin puppet, a Kremlin stooge. You are not adults. You're children. And you should have no role in this conversation whatsoever. It's embarrassing that you're asking questions like this. The goal is to end the bloodshed. The goal is to end the bloodshed. President Trump was ready to announce a deal that would secure economic interests of the United States in Ukraine, to Ukraine's benefit, to the United States' benefit, and as an impediment to further invasion by Russia. Because when American assets are there, there's something meaningful on the line for the United States. And it's just childish the way that these people act. It's idiocy, and I've got some Democrats for you today. I'll play them coming up. That I'm ready to mock for their stupidity on this subject, because they one, either have no idea what they're talking about, or two, they're engaging in a form of moral blackmail that's actually designed to lead to the deaths of more people, and it's disgusting.
If I were president, it would not have happened, and October 7th would not have happened in Israel, and inflation wouldn't have happened, and Afghanistan disastrous. The way they withdrew, not the fact that they withdrew, but the way they withdrew would have never happened. And we would have had Bagram right now instead of China having it. It was 1 hour away from where China makes their nuclear weapons. We would have kept Bagram with one of the biggest air bases in the world. All of these things happened, and it's a shame. But it is what it is, and now we're here. I want to see it end fast. I don't want to see this go on for years and years. Now,
that's what
President
Zelensky's
Zelensky supposedly made a statement today in AP. I'm not a big fan of AP, so maybe it was an incorrect statement, but he said he thinks the war's going to go on for a long time, and he better not be right about that.
He did say that. He said it's going to go on for a very, very long time. Do you know what that means about the likeliness that Zelensky's going to stay in office and have no elections? That means he'll be there for a very, very long time. He's far away from relinquishing power, he's telling the press today. The LA Times reporting, Ukraine's Zelensky says end of war with Russia is very, very far away. A deal to end the war between Ukraine and Russia is still very, very far away, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said, adding that he expects to keep receiving American support despite his recent fraught relations with President Trump. Quote, I think our relationship with the U.S. will continue because it's more than an occasional relationship, Zelensky said late Sunday. Quote, I believe that Ukraine is a strong enough partnership with the United States of America to keep aid flowing, he said, at a briefing in Ukrainian before leaving London. So a bunch of outlets capturing his remarks yesterday. But lost in all of this is, that's not in the headline, but I'm here to tell you, so long as they have martial law in Ukraine, and so long as the government continues to have this law in the books that says, hey, no elections until martial law is over, that's Volodymyr Zelensky announcing to the world, no, the Ukrainian people will not have an option about their leadership. That's not coming. I'm staying in power, and this war will continue its grind. And a lot of Ukrainians are going to continue to be cannon fodder. And President Trump is looking to get out of that. He doesn't like that deal at all. 3:21 now. All right, let's see. I've got Annie calling in from Vienna now, line 2. Annie, good afternoon. You are on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince, I was just wondering if this meeting between Trump and Zelensky was kind of a setup on the part of the Dems. We know that Zelensky met with Chris Murphy the day before. I'm sure he had input from his Democrat colleagues. And they know Trump well enough to know how he might react to things said by Zelensky. So they basically plotted this thing, and Zelensky became nothing more than a useful idiot for the Dems.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question, and I suspect that is definitely a factor here. Whether or not it's explicitly, hey, don't accept a deal, don't put up with that, insult Trump, whatever they're inspiring him to do, or at the very least flattering Zelensky into believing that it's his way or the highway no matter what, which of course many of these Democrats and a couple of Republicans have been doing, which is like, hey, you walk on water, dude. Anything you want goes, and everybody needs to bow to you. You're the leader of the free world. This is the attitude they've taken, and sowing the seeds of chaos. And it really makes you wonder, at what point do they get charged the way Mike Flynn was as the incoming national security advisor, Annie? For violating the Logan Act, for negotiating with foreign powers and upending the foreign policy of the United States out of the sight of the executive branch. Kind of seems like that's what's going on here.
Yes, absolutely. And it played entirely into a Democrat strategy. Make Trump look awful. Like, all the papers, what a disaster this meeting was, blah, blah, blah. This was supposed to be just a ceremony, a ceremonial thing where they were going to say, look at the deal we've made.
Yes.
It was said and done. Yep. And then Zelensky comes out with this stuff, and I don't know whether he was a willing or perhaps an unwilling puppet, but I just think the whole thing was a setup.
Well, he came in and he kamikazed the thing. And any media outlet that you follow or listen to who said that Trump was the one who was belligerent, that Trump upended the meeting, that J.D. Vance upended the meeting, they are lying to you. Because they're not telling you about the 45-minute meeting. They're not telling you about how gracious Trump and J.D. were. They're not telling you any of that. They're taking a side against the president of the United States in the interest of advancing more human suffering, because they're disgusting. Don't fall for it. Annie, thank you. Great call. Ahead, Mary Katherine Hamm on the Democrats and their attempts to pull the wool back over your eyes. Hey, good afternoon to you. 3:35 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, Ken Cuccinelli is here at 4 o'clock. We talked to him about the cartels apparently running scared now in Mexico, shutting down fentanyl labs, running for their lives because President Trump is in office. It's happened already. We'll explore that. And then Miranda Devine from the New York Post joins us at 5 o'clock. We'll talk about Vladimir Zelensky blowing up that Oval Office meeting on Friday. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630 WMAL. Democrats have no idea what to do. They're living in the wilderness, and they don't know how to build a campfire. They have nothing right now. According to Politico, they were just huddling. They're huddling. That's a big deal. Out in Loudoun County, Virginia, where, of course, all radical Democrats huddle, for a retreat last month where they plotted their party's comeback. You ready for the... You ready for the possibilities here of what they might do to win you back over? The party should, quote, embrace patriotism, community, and traditional American imagery. They should ban far-left candidate questionnaires and refuse to participate in forums that create ideological purity tests, and move away from the dominance of small-dollar donors whose preferences may not align with the broader electorate. They should push back against far-left staffers and groups that exert a disproportionate influence on policy and messaging. Candidates should get out of elite circles and into real communities, tailgates, gun shows, local restaurants, churches, and the party needs to own the failures of democratic governance in large cities and commit to improving local government. You think they're going to do any of that? And if they do, is it more than just another narrative stunt? Joining us now is the great Mary Katherine Hamm, host of the Getting Hammered podcast and a Fox News contributor. Mary Katherine, good to have you back with us.
Hello, Thank you for having me.
Okay, so Democrats have a big plan, and it involves changing the narrative again.
Look, some of these ideas seem normal and good. I know, crazy. The fact that you have to go to a retreat to learn them, I think, is a problem as a Democrat. Like, you should just know that Americans go to church and tailgates and gun shows, and that maybe you could interact with them like a normal person, and that would get you closer to winning elections. But they don't know that, so they go to the retreat. And I love look. I know that our listeners are in Loudoun County, so but going
Please
to
go
Loudoun
hard.
County
Please.
to get the pulse of the nation. It is, I think it's literally the richest county in the United States of America. So I think maybe that's not the place. Although, to be fair, they did lose a lot of votes there in 2024 of suburban moms who were done with lefties.
That's true.
So maybe it is a good place to study. I am going to start a consultancy where I just teach these people to grill steaks, go to a football game, attend church, and I'm going to charge them a lot of money. And then I'm going to charge them more money if they need to go further than Loudoun County, which I think they should. I think
you should start. You should start with Chuck Schumer and Elizabeth Warren. I think those are the two that you should start with. Because then you can teach Schumer how to grill a hamburger properly, and then you can teach Elizabeth Warren how to make it look like it's not the first time she's ever consumed a beer. You can make them much more natural in when they try to interact with humans.
Yes, I mean, I've been talking about this for years because they are very bad at grilling. They get their, Amazon delivered, they get the Amazon delivered cover for themselves, apron, while they're grilling.
Oh, yeah.
It's still got the seams in it and everything, and creases. And then they don't know how to use a spatula, and they don't know how much to put on the grill. And it's like, guys, I can help with this, but that was a very niche issue. And now I think I'm broadening out to just teaching you to be normal people. But I think they're on to the right things here to a certain degree. I do think the problem, a lot of lefties were mad that they said, let's get move beyond small dollar donors, because obviously that's kind of their rank and file. The problem is their rank and file and their base is very, very left and very, very far from the median voter. So when they give money and they ask for results, they're asking for different things than the regular voter wants, and the party can't get its mind wrapped around that.
It's interesting. The small dollar donor debate is a kind of an interesting one, because what they mean by that is that these candidates will send out really emotional appeals to people, and they'll try and basically campaign on some of the most radical issues. And if you're the kind of person who thinks that boys should play girl sports, you're really into it. And you're so far into it that you're willing to open your checkbook and give it to these Democrats. So they try and make these appeals to the most radical elements of their party. But it's funny because when you say, actually, let's devalue small dollar donors, let's get away from them, the counter to that is, well, you're kind of just admitting that you're a party of oligarchs. So it really seems like there's not a great place for them to go.
No, there's really not. And of course, that sort of neuters their argument against Trump, who is also funded by small dollar donors and a combination with billionaires as well. They just think their billionaires are good and our billionaires are bad. But that's not really a principle that you can stand on. And, they give J.B. Pritzker the stadium at the DNC because he's the right kind of billionaire. But then it becomes very hard, especially if you profess that you're going to get rid of the small dollar donor focus, that you're the party of the working or middle class person, which is what they need to do. That's actually what they need to do. They need to connect with working and middle class people, and they have a lot of trouble doing it.
Yeah, they definitely do. And by the way, J.B. Pritzker is a literal fat cat. That guy, he's the perfect. He's the perfect example. But all of these conversations, what is so interesting to me about them is it always involves them thinking all we have to do is change our message, or we have to be better at delivering our message. It never involves real soul searching about, hey, what does our party believe in? What do we represent? Who are we as a people? Why do we even deserve to have power? It always comes, even their postmortems on the election. All of these guys are going on podcasts and into their favorite newspapers and magazines, and they just keep repeating, they're like, we had such a successful presidency under Joe Biden. We just were really bad at telling the American people about that. We're just terrible messengers. And I'm sitting there going, no, the presidency was horrible. And that's what people saw. And that's why they voted that way.
No, I think that's a huge part of their problem is talking down to people. And talking down to people, a huge part of that is gaslighting them, as one Biden and Harris aide admitted they did, is gaslighting them about things that are true and happening in front of their eyes. And then they know that they can't trust you, and they get the feeling that you disrespect them. And I think that's the part that's really hard to overcome. It is not just a messaging issue. It is in like super educated, super credentialed, affluent base of a party looking down on American voters and trying to figure out how to tailgate. And like, that's not going to be the most simple solution. I don't think that's going to work right away, because what you've done is you spent years, decades telling, for instance, male voters that they're toxic. Like, that is the word that if you ask any man what word the left associates with man, they'll tell you toxic, right? So when you've done that for 15 years, winning those people back is going to be a tough sell.
Yeah, they talk about Americans like they're an alien race visiting people for the first time. How do we blend in among the earthlings? It's like, what do you mean? Like, you're supposed to be one of us. Even here, I've got some audio for you. Here's Jen Psaki on one of her podcasts talking about that, you know, Democrats are so cool. They just don't know the real us because we're so guarded.
I mean, I'm going to steal a little bit of what Dan said, which is like Democrats sometimes don't take advantage of the cultural moments. It doesn't have to just be the Super Bowl. Sometimes there is an unwillingness or a discomfort in showing all sides of yourself. You know, I mean, there's a lot of like extremely smart Democrats out there. A lot of them are elected. You don't have to always talk like you are defending your PhD thesis, right? At every moment, you can talk about your love for sports, football, art, cultural things, music.
You listen. I mean, does she even hear herself? She's saying, hey, we're all so brilliant, and it's really hard to be brilliant and talk to commoners. So what if we all just kind of got into the mindset of a high school dropout? Maybe then we could connect with voters.
No, so here's the thing. She is touching on a real thing that I think she's coming to realize, or maybe some of them are, which is that they've scared themselves out of talking. They all beat each other up for using the wrong words or making the wrong facial expression, and you can get canceled at the drop of a hat. You can get told that you're misogynist or racist or whatever the ist is of the day if you're a left-leaning person. Now, you and I as right-leaning people come like pre-canceled. We're not worried about it. Joe Rogan, Elon Musk, they can have a 3-hour conversation where they just have a conversation. The reason Kamala Harris couldn't go on Joe Rogan, A, she's not great at talking, but B, the left is not great at talking because they have proscribed a tiny universe of things they're allowed to say. And that universe, by the way, sounds like a PhD defense. It sounds weird. It doesn't sound like normal people.
Yeah.
And then they've given themselves a pass for trying to convince people of anything, because what they've done is bullied people.
So
right? They've said we don't need to convince you. This just is, we're better than you. We're doing our PhD defense. Shut up.
You're reminding me of what happened to Massachusetts Congressman Seth Moulton. So right after the election, he was one of the few Democrats to say out loud, like, hey, guys, maybe this whole letting boys play girl sports thing is a really crazy idea, and we shouldn't be out there supporting it. Maybe that's a dumb thing for us to be backing as a party. And that led to immense backlash in all of these lefty publications. They were attacking him. His own aides started resigning in protest for him saying that out loud. That's literally what you're describing here, which is like if any of them tried to say something reasonable, they're attacked because then they're being seen as like pro-Trump or something.
Right. That is an 80-20 issue, and they have trouble talking about it, right? Like getting on the 80% side is hard for them because their party has a bunch of very loud people on the 20% side of that issue. And they haven't had practice at doing this. They know that the price is high for them with their own people if they voice the normal things that the normal Americans want to hear. Yeah. And that becomes a real problem for them. Because you have to be brave enough to stand up against your own people, and then you have to weather whatever comes at you, and that's all for an 80-20 issue.
Yes.
Lord help them when they get to a 60-40.
You know, one of the other pieces here is something that Scott Jennings brought up in relation to the 80-20 issues. He said, it is amazing the number of times where President Trump will take the 80, and so Democrats feel like they have to take the 20 because, you know, they got to be against Trump. This instinct to be against Trump on all of these issues, it does seem like a good way to kill your political party.
Yeah, like this is the whole immigration policy, right? It was govern in opposition to Trump. Get rid of stay in Mexico, get rid of all these safeguards, send the message that everyone is welcome and will give you all sorts of lavish benefits, right? That was in opposition to Trump. And that was a horrible policy that has now potentially taken the Democratic Party down several notches for the foreseeable future, right? And I think it was mostly inspired by being anti-Trump. Obviously, they have some ideological bents in that direction anyway, but it's just not good policy. And I would also admonish the right, don't necessarily end up being for things just because the left is against them, right? Like you don't want to have your ideology or your governing be in opposition to anything. You would like to be in harmony with what works.
Although I
got to tell you, the libs are so wrong that like it's hard to be.
Yes, it's a useful filtering mechanism. They're so wrong that I'm like, oh, I must be. I got to go against that. Those are people are crazy.
They're frequently wrong.
That's really funny. And lastly, to your point about this anti-Trump thing animating everything they do. Even today, I'll get into this coming up, but even today, Melania Trump, the first lady, goes to Congress to support a piece of legislation called the Take It Down Act, designed to punish the non-consensual sharing of sexual images. Like, basically, especially kids are sharing these photos with each other. They have no idea what they're doing, and then it ends up blowing up their whole lives. So you've got Melania Trump going to advocate for this legislation, and Democrats refuse to show. This is easy. It's the easiest thing in the world. Show up and support it. Why can't you be a part of it? And they didn't. And so she's there by herself with Republicans today asking straight up, out loud, where are the Democrats? How come they can't be here for this?
Well, and that's an easy one because it's the first lady. Like, it doesn't have to be the president. You can show up. You can do the thing. And also it's like it's a protecting women thing, which they're getting on the wrong side of with the transgender issue. In, I believe it was Maine, the Republican House member who was a woman was censured and had her right to vote in the House.
I talked to her last week twice.
For speaking out. Right. This is Laurel Libby. They're getting on the wrong side of these protect women issues. And that is a very bad idea for them and their brand, although I think they've already deviated enough that a lot of women read that correctly in 2024.
Yeah, it gets crazy. I saw another one this morning. I can't even think of what it was, but I was like, it just reminded me, like, nobody has done more to devalue women than the left. That's just like that's like their entire operation right now, which is so crazy to me. Mary Katherine Hamm, you're a great woman, and it's great to have you on the show always.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
MK8. All right, we go to the phones where we find Dan in Iowa, line 4. Hello, Dan. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
How you doing, Vince?
Great, Dan. What's on your mind?
Well, I was just wondering if you thought the Democrats, when they said that they were going to get away from small dollar donor issues, do you think they also meant the millions of small dollar donors that show up on Act Blue that are actually billionaires from overseas?
Yeah, who are laundering their money through Act Blue and pretending like they're just some sort of left-wing grandma somewhere in the middle of the country. Yeah, no. And are you as dissatisfied as I am that like we've never really gotten the full picture and we're not? I don't see any prosecutions just yet, Dan.
No, you could say that about 100 different stories.
Yes, for sure.
Right now, but hopefully that changes.
I know, including that the Epstein stuff. We were promised. They were supposed to get all those files on Friday at 8 a.m. Into Pam Bondi, and then it's been crickets since then. So I'd really love to know what's going on at the Department of Justice there. But Dan is exactly right about all of the deep concerns about how the left was laundering money into the election system from God knows where, and then pretending it was just a series of small dollar donors. Plenty of evidence to suggest that deserves a lot more scrutiny and perhaps a lot of prosecutions. Wouldn't that be something? A little change of pace? Coming up, Ken Cuccinelli, speaking of prosecutors, former Virginia Attorney General. He'll join us. He was also a deputy secretary at the Department of Homeland Security, and it's that expertise I will rely on as we talk about the cartels now running scared because President Trump has a plan to deal with them.